absolutely wild as Vern Gagne's All-Star Wrestling goes coast to coast and continent to continent. The greatest wrestlers in the world.
He may be an apprentice carpenter, but I guarantee you he is a seasoned ring veteran.
I've been hit with bar stools, bar rags, barmaids.
I'm talking to you.
They're scared that Hulkamania's still running wild. Oh, yeah. I got a big fat wife and 9 kids at home, and I gotta feed them.
And take a look at Jesse the Body in real life.
Open your hand once, if you would.
You understand?
This is absolutely unbelievable. Totally, completely out of control.
He's coming in over the top. Hey! Look out!
Well, after surviving what was a legendary soiree, a big-time party for SummerSlam at the luxurious, expansive Tubbs abode, the Tubbs Mansion here in Minnesota, we are officially, folks, back to ringside. And where is the man behind that multi-million-dollar soiree? There he is, right there. Those ribs off the grill, mwah, great stuff, buddy.
Thank you. I was actually going to, we still have a few of them left in the fridge. I was actually going to run over, once you started talking about it, I was going to run over to the fridge and like grab them and like have like my face all full of ribs. But then the problem is I wouldn't be able to like get away and wash my face during the show. So I'd just be sitting here with like ribs and barbecue sauce all over my face. And I don't know, maybe to do the show better, but I figure that's my version of face paint, right? Barbecue sauce.
Barbecue sauce. There you go.
But no, it was fun to have you over for SummerSlam this weekend. And I mean, oh boy, where do we start?
we got a lot to talk about, and the little bit of good and a lot of the bad, well, maybe, or mediocre, so to speak. But there's been better events, I think.
Yeah, there have, and I kind of want to start with just the John Cena promo on SmackDown the Friday before, because he came out and all but said, "Hey, we made a mistake. We did this because we thought it was going to be good for the story. The people that were here that were supposed to do it basically left me high and dry," meaning Travis Scott and The Rock. We know that Travis Scott and WWE have, allegedly had a falling out, a parting of the ways to Travis Scott, no longer a factor, but it's going to be a black mark in wrestling history. I really believe that. Taking a shot at The Rock, I feel like there are only a handful of people that can do it the way that Cena did, to turn babyface. And I wasn't quite sure what to make out of it, but I think you needed to do something with it, because the John Cena, bad guy run, the heel turn, it was not working. And I think this was their way of trying to salvage it before moving on to the next part of the story.
We've said many times, once they did the angle with The Rock and Travis Scott, it was never mentioned again. It was all of a sudden, like it never happened, and you don't remember why John Cena was trying to ruin wrestling. Mm-hmm. They just dropped that whole storyline. Now, my question would be, I don't think Cena would have gone into business for himself in taking a shot at The Rock.
Well, no, they had to have known that this is the temperature, right? Like, yeah. People are pissed that there's no more Rock, because you're leaving this open-ended story. And I don't care if you're The Rock, I don't care who you are. If you're going to make yourself a focal point of a story, and then the motivation for Cena changed from selling your soul to wanting to ruin wrestling. How did it happen? When did it happen? Why did it happen? I think there was just a lot of confusion as to, why are we booing John Cena? Why is John Cena a bad guy? It didn't make any sense, because there was no Rock there to be the puppet master.
No doubt about it. I mean, they dropped the ball on this one. There were so many loose ends. I mean, my God, it's like, unraveling a ball of twine. and Cena made kind of veiled references, to the rapper and the guy pulling the puppet strings and what have you. But if you think about it too, the overall Cena turn, the fire was turned down systematically over the weeks too. He came out like a house of fire. I'm going to ruin wrestling and you people suck. And I mean, just this classic heel promo 101. And then it was tempered over the weeks. I mean, he was still heel John Cena, but not with that edge, not with
a little bit of a glimpses of, hey, I'm still your hero, John Cena.
And and Cena, you can look at it and say, well, boy, that was a Hail Mary that he pulled on SmackDown, but Cena can do it. Cena can pull it off. And the way he did it, the way he made the veiled references to Travis Scott and The Rock was brilliant. And, you and I, we talked about this. It's like, okay, are they going to go full throttle with this Cena babyface turn now? Or is this a ruse? Is this a swerve? And is he going to go, back to being heel Cena at SummerSlam? So they had us thinking, they had us wondering. And that's a good thing about wrestling. The bad thing is that they had to put us in that position in the first place because they dropped the ball on the storyline.
One thing I like about it, and WWE has done a better job about this, is throwing a last-minute wrinkle into it where people can't overthink. It's like, okay, well, I got 2 or 3 weeks to think about what's going to happen with this. No, this was Friday. Guess what? You've got Sunday. You got 48 hours to let this marinate. And that promo, that 10 minutes sold me on SummerSlam more than the weeks leading up to it, because that's the intrigue. I want to be able to question motivations, and I want to be able to legitimately feel like I don't know where this is going, because that's the excitement that I feel as a fan. And I got that after that promo leading into the weekend.
We're going to be talking a little bit about the WWE Unreal a little bit later on, but to your point right now, that to me is the problem and the dichotomy that I have with WWE Unreal, and we'll talk about that more. But here, on the one hand, they've got us thinking, they got the wheels turning, what are they going to do? The intrigue, and then on the other hand, they're taking us behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Just leave the intrigue alone. I don't need to, go where else. But as far as Cena is concerned in that promo, it was interesting how quickly the fans got behind him. It was almost like they didn't buy this thing from the beginning and were just waiting to pop for John Cena in his final run in the business. It was instantaneous. It was like everybody, he had him in the palm of his hand. Once again, just like that. Well done.
And he apologized.
Yeah.
John Cena apologized. We don't have apologies in wrestling.
Not in wrestling. No.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get to SummerSlam. I know that one thing about it is, and maybe at the end of it, remind me, but I want to talk about the messaging that we're hearing between the reality and the kayfabe. But we got 2 nights of SummerSlam. I'm going to go on record, and I've been on record. I think 2 nights of a pay-per-view, it's not a PLE, sorry, it's a pay-per-view. It's just too much. I feel like you're saturating it. The highlight of SummerSlam for me, honestly, was it starting earlier and ending earlier. Maybe that's an old get off my lawn moment, but 2 nights of SummerSlam, I know it's a money grab. I know this is a TKO thing. I don't like 2 nights of these pay-per-views because it got watered down. And Saturday night, I got to be honest, there were a lot of things that did not click for me on Saturday night.
Couldn't agree with you more. And as far as the 2-night pay-per-views, whether it's SummerSlam or WrestleMania or whatever, and now they're talking about doing 2 WrestleManias or more in a year. It's a money grab. Of course it is. And TKO, it's pretty transparent what's going on here. When Stephanie McMahon comes out and says, between the 2 nights, we drew 113,000 people. We get it.
What does that mean to the average fan? All that tells me is, hey, guess what? We made a lot of money. Okay, great. I don't care how much money you made. That doesn't mean anything to me. Give me a good product. I don't care how much money you make because I'm not getting a trickle down from that.
Triple H at the what used to be the press conferences, and I don't know if they're going to eliminate those altogether.
Yeah,
now.
it sounds like they've just completely done away with the press conferences, which I thought were ridiculous to begin with.
Well, they were. I mean, you had softball planted questions, and it was also a showcase for Hunter to come out and say, we drew the biggest gate in the history of the boom, bada ba, bada boom. And clearly that's, ass kissing TKO.
Mm-hmm.
But to the average wrestling fan, you're right. So we drew 113,000 over the 2 nights. Okay, that's great. But what does that mean to me? Talk to me about what happened at the matches. Don't lead into your follow-up and the big go home shit with, this is how much money we made. Let's talk about the angles, the wrestlers first, and then, hey, as an aside, and by the way, want to thank everybody. We did really well at the box office. Don't make that your lead story.
Yeah, absolutely. As for the matches, I thought there was one highlight, and obviously it was the world title match between Gunther and Punk. But I want to kind of start out with a couple things before that. First of all, and I've got some kind of an update on something that we were talking about over the weekend. First of all, the Tiffany, Stratton, Jade, Cargill, it didn't work for me. I still think you see that Jade just has not, even with all the work that they've been giving her at the Performance Center and everything that she's been doing, presentation is great. It is off the charts. I don't buy her as a babyface. I don't buy Tiffany Stratton as a babyface. And when Tiff is the one that's carrying the match, I just think that you have to change the ingredients in the dish, because I didn't like how the dish tasted.
Presentation, you're absolutely right. Nobody has a better look than Jade Cargill. I mean, my God, she comes out and she's just captivating. You got 2 people in the ring that are relatively inexperienced. Of the 2, Tiffany Stratton at least has matches under her belt. Jade Cargill has a handful here and there. And I think what's telling about it, and not that I love the internet wrestling community, because God, I don't. I
say nobody hates wrestling more than wrestling fans.
That's right. But you know what? Every once in a while, they get it right. And I think even the casual fan says, you know what? She's not getting any better here. I think Jade Cargill, and this is just my personal feeling, if you're going to keep her on the main roster, and I think Jade is looking beyond WWE, to be honest with you. I think this is all about getting out there, getting her look out there, and then maybe going into some movies and, sci-fi stuff or what future.
Well, and just to kind of piggyback off of that, I think that's what a lot of people now are using WWE for. They're using that as a stepping stone to get their brand out there and to go mainstream, and they don't really care about wrestling. And I think that's also something that frustrates wrestling fans, because fans don't want to feel like they're being used.
And it's pretty obvious too. I mean, on a minor level with the Cena movies and the Marine and Miz and all these guys getting into movies, yeah, everybody kind of uses it as the springboard. In this case, with Jade Cargill, I think it's obvious where she's going. She's not a long-termer in this business. Having said that, I think if you're going to utilize her in any capacity, put her in a tag team match somehow where you're not exposing all those flaws. And this is not, there's not a knock on Jade Cargill. Some people just don't take to the business.
Yes.
And when they don't take to the business, they move elsewhere. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say Ronda Rousey. Perfect example. All the hype in the world, but Ronda hated the business. She was not the smoothest in the ring, and she moved on. She had stepping stone again. She's getting into movies or whatever else. But I think
once she got her ass kicked by Holly Holm, I think that kind of took that took the bloom off the rose. And now you're like, well, she's not the baddest woman on the planet, and it just kind of you lose the aura. But I think Jade's still got that aura.
Absolutely.
How long do you keep that aura with her, with protecting it? I think that's the key. And I mean, she already lost at SummerSlam. So
And you said, Chris, you can't really buy her as a baby face. I mean, there's just something about the attitude and the aura. And I've mentioned before, I loved it in AEW when she came out as the brash heel, and Tony cut the shit. That's the Jade Cargill I would rather see. So she's got some flaws. Tiffany Stratton as a baby face.
I don't buy. I think people like it's Tiffy time.
Yeah.
But then after that, it's like, oh, okay. Well, there's nothing about Tiffany's attitude, her actions, her demeanor, her body language that says babyface. And you can't just give me a white meat milquetoast babyface promo and expect me to buy it, because AEW tried that with MJF and it just came off as way too cheesy and almost condescending and insulting the fans.
No doubt. And Tiffany, I think on her best day, does not deliver a great promo. It's the same old. I think the best promo that she's delivered arguably was the one against Charlotte Flair, where she kind of went off script. When I think she's given her lines and scripted and kept in a little box, doesn't do very well. It's kind of annoying almost. But she's the person at this point. The WWE is she's got the rocket attached to her rear end. So we'll see what happens. We're sitting here and she's there. So
yeah, and I guess we have to cheer for her because she's from Minnesota. I mean, I'm sure she's a nice gal. I don't buy the baby face. Speaking about somebody who has taken to the business, we've said this before. Whether you like Logan Paul, hate him, whatever individually feel about being a YouTube influencer, where he's come from, his attitude, politics, whatever. I think if I look at Logan Paul, I see an absolute star in the making. Like, he, outside of Kurt Angle, has taken to the wrestling business, I feel, the best and is believable. The tag match with he and Drew against Randy and Jelly Roll, I appreciate what Jelly Roll was trying to do. It was kind of what I thought. It was better actually than what I thought it was going to be. But at the end of the day, I wasn't excited for it. I think that's the thing. I wasn't really looking forward to that match, and it was just kind of there.
Again, 100% agree with you. I think Jelly Roll, in his role, was very limited. They gave him a handful of moves. That's fine. And he did okay with that.
By the way, he's getting a lot of shit for taking the frog splash on the table, and it's like, well, he's bracing himself. Well, of course he's going to brace himself. Everybody's going to brace themselves. That's the camera angle. That's not his fault. I think Jelly Roll, with where he was put, especially in that spot. No, I didn't like I'm beaten up, I'm going to be the guy that's going to come back to save the day. I didn't like that. That just kind of took me out of the moment. But for people that are giving him a hard time for taking that frog splash, I don't think that anybody could have done it better than he did.
I thought it was great. And of course, Logan Paul, as you said, this guy, for as long as he's been in the business, or the relatively short time, does he get it? My God, he is the consummate cocky heel. I mean, he's Dolph Ziggler on steroids.
It's believable because that's who he is in real life. You talk about somebody who turned their real life persona up.
Yep.
Logan Paul, I think, gets it. And again, this is just from a strictly, I can't stand him. But God, I love to watch him work. When he's on my TV, I hate watch. But I also know he's going to do something spectacular.
He really is good, and he gets it. He knows the heel psychology, the heel philosophy. You mentioned that this is the real guy. This is, you're seeing Logan Paul amplified, 10,000 times. But he's got the skills to back it up. You mentioned Kurt Angle is the other guy who took to the business right away. I would say yes. I think the difference is Kurt Angle started to become a kind of a comedy character. wearing the cowboy hat 10 sizes too small, or drinking the milk or whatever. So he was kind of a comic foil, and everybody chanting, singing Angle, you suck when he came into the ring. Logan Paul, on the other hand, is a wrestling heel. He's an old school wrestling heel. He knows how to light that fire. He knows how to be smarmy. He knows how to be a dick, and he's good in the ring. And
do you think Logan, though, could take his personality and eventually become that? Because Kurt was a badass before, but Logan's only been doing it for like a year and a half, and but I don't ever see Logan Paul going down that road.
No, you mean I
think that kind of proves your point.
Yeah, no, I think, it's interesting. We're talking about what, Logan Paul is developing, and boy, he's going to be a star. No, he is. Right now, a star, yes. Logan Paul is a star, and he's an accomplished worker in the ring. He obviously loves the business. He's got the athletic background. He's got the martial arts, pugilistic, whatever you want to call it, background. He gets it. He is a complete package. He's having the time of his life. You can see it when he gets into the ring. Mm-hmm. There's nothing new about Logan Paul in terms of how he delivers a heel promo. If anything, he's a 1980s smart-assed heel come to life in 2025.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even say his best days are ahead of him, although they probably are, but he's the real deal, like him or not. There's and fearless. I don't give a shit who you are. You take that frog splash from the top of the turnbuckle to the table. This guy's good. He's got it. He's got it all.
Yeah, and he makes it look so easy. That's the thing too. He makes it look so easy.
Yeah,
and kudos to Logan Paul. We were talking about one of the things that I think a lot of people didn't understand was the Sami Zayn Karrion Kross match, where Karrion Kross, does the job for Sami Zayn, and we're wondering, well, where do you go? Because to me, my opinion, and I've mentioned this to you, I think Sami's cold. They've missed the boat with Sami. They didn't pull the trigger during the Bloodline when he turned babyface. I felt like they should have. They should have done more with Sami in terms of giving him more of a legit white-hot babyface run in the main event. Karrion Kross doing the job, and Kross had this organic groundswell. Sounds like he's a free agent now. He and Scarlett are no longer under contract. And I know you do the job when you're out, but I don't understand. Sometimes WWE will listen to the fans and they will allow things to happen organically, and other times they cut it off. This is one of those opportunities that using your online presence and kind of, breaking that wall, and, the promos that he had cut about being frustrated. There were a lot of elements to shoot, and fans got behind it. In WWE, for all intents and purposes, it sounds like they're letting them walk at this point. And I don't understand, when you've got somebody that the fans are rallying behind, why do you just let them? Oh, by the way, it was Ron Killings this weekend. Speaking about killing momentum, WWE does a great job of killing momentum and allowing this to happen with Karrion Kross. I feel like it's a misstep by WWE.
Here's what I don't understand. If you're not going to renew the contracts of Kross and Scarlett, this is not something that you just found out. This is not something that you just decided. You've known for a while, we're not going to bring these people back. So given that, why bother with this storyline with Sami Zayn for all these weeks? And it went nowhere. It basically, the last couple of times Karrion Kross has been on pay-per-views, if I'm not mistaken, he's done the job. Mm. You get this groundswell of support, like you said, and where does it go? As far as Sami Zayn is concerned, I don't know if cold is the word, Chris. They certainly have dropped the ball with him. I saw an interview with Gunther the other night on just last night actually on the net here, and he was talking about Sami Zayn, and he was talking in glowing terms about Sami, how he's got the underdog. He doesn't look like your typical wrestler. He doesn't have that wrestler's physique. People can identify with him. They get behind him. You're absolutely right. They didn't even give him a one-night run with the championship in Montreal. His response that he got from the crowd at SummerSlam was lukewarm at best, but so was the response to Karrion Kross. That was one thing that I was going to mention. You have this groundswell. We want Kross. We want Kross. Well, you got him, and you sat there on your hand.
Yeah, you didn't do anything with him. I noticed that too. The crowd was just, crowd goes mild, as they say.
And is that a situation where when you have gimmick matches on a show and you have the matches with the bells and the whistles, that a singles match, a one-on-one singles match loses its luster? Nobody gives a shit because they're not getting all the frills and all the nonsense. That might be, but between the response that those two got and the fact that Kross was getting this incredible groundswell organically, like you said, for what? And it was like, they're setting this match up where Kross says, after I beat you, you're going to admit, Sami Zayn, that Kross was right all the time. And Sami says, no, you're going to admit that I was right all the time. 1, 2, 3, and they went back to the locker room with no follow-up whatsoever.
There was none of that, none of that, the handshaking, none of the anticipation. It's kind of like we talked about at the beginning with where is it going to go? There's no questioning about, okay, well, so-and-so wins. Well, what do we do? Well, so-and-so wins. What do we do? It's just like 1, 2, 3, boom, it's over. 1, 2, 3.
Over. And you mentioned Ron Killings, that this big deal with Ron Killings. Now what? Where was he? It's just sometimes the WWE will do things that are really, really great. They can do great stuff.
Yes.
And I would say that the Punk match with Gunther was great stuff. On the flip side of it, sometimes they completely miss the boat and they're oblivious to what's going on around them.
Yeah. Well, they did absolutely bury the Ron Killings momentum. Absolutely. Within the first 2 days of bringing him back, like Ron Killings could still be hot right now if they would have played their cards right. And we've talked about that at length on other Back to Ring sites. Let's get to that main event match between Gunther and CM Punk. Great match. I thought it was by far and away the best thing on Saturday, and not even close. Like, those two guys, they brought it all. The cash in at the end, I hated it. I did not like it whatsoever. Way too telegraphed, and you have different reasons for not liking it. I thought that it took away from what Punk and Gunther did, and I feel bad for those guys because the entire match, I feel people were anticipating the cash in, so I don't think they were really in the moment of the match.
That's what happens. That's what happens when you have, first of all, what a silly. I'm not a big fan of the Money in the Bank cash-ins anyway. I think I've only enjoyed one over the years, and that was Dolph Ziggler's. I think, as you said, Chris, they're looking past what they're seeing in the ring right now. So you got Punk and Gunther, and I would say that was probably Punk's best outing since he's come back. I thought he really delivered.
Yes, he did.
And Gunther, I'm a huge fan of Gunther. I think those two put on a clinic. They beat the shit out of each other. The pacing was good. They went 25, 30 minutes. But again, when you've got this potential cash in looming in the background, are the fans even paying attention to how hard these guys are working in the ring? Or are they just waiting for the moment afterward? And we'll talk about, the return of a certain guy later on as well. But I feel bad for Gunther and Punk because their effort, which was outstanding, was overshadowed by 1 minute of Seth Rollins getting in the ring and hitting Punk over and over with the briefcase. I don't like it. I just don't.
Well, one thing I don't like about it is I was there at WrestleMania 31. Like, I was there with some of my buddies in Santa Clara when Seth Rollins cashed in. And I can tell you unequivocally, that was one of the loudest pops that I had ever heard, because I think as fans, we were caught up in the moment. We kind of anticipated that maybe it was going to happen, but it had never happened that way before. Like in the triple threat at WrestleMania, never happened. So they go through that. And then as I'm watching the replay later, they call it the heist of the century. And now they're calling this the ruse of the century. It's late. It's lazy. It's sloppy. And if you're going to really present this as something big, you need to sell it as something big. Being the ruse of the century, you're just taking something from 10 years ago and slapping a new name on it. You're changing out one word. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't like it. Now, this might set up Punk and, my buddy Ryan was, we were texting some ideas. Hell in a Cell at Mania, Punk and Rollins for the title. The problem is, how do you keep this thing going for another 7, 8 months?
Yeah.
How do you keep it going when it's been going so long? Like, I don't know how you can keep this thing going, because I don't think you can't end this at anything other than a major show. And I mean, to me, it's Mania, but this thing may go to Survivor Series or Rumble. But to me, after what you did, you got to stretch this thing out, and I just don't know how.
I don't know how either, and I agree with you. You went to the well again with Seth Rollins, first of all. Another cash in, and I know they got some backlash about that, and there's old Hunter out there, coming up with 87 different reasons why why this happened. We don't trust his doctors, and we didn't get the right information.
Well, that's another thing. Like, Triple H coming out and saying, "Well, I can't believe I'm upset that we got bogus medical information." You've literally told us that all of this is a show. Right. So did you get bad medical information, or is it a show? I mean, it's the messaging, Mick. It's the messaging too. Are we real? Are we unreal? I don't know, because from segment to segment, they're telling us something different. And it's confusing me as a fan, because I don't know, what am I watching? I think I know what I'm watching, but if you're telling me not, then it's complete and utter nonsense.
Total nonsense, and I think they would probably explain it away by saying, well, when Hunter comes out at the end of the PLE and he's given these excuses and the bogus information that we got from the doctors and what have you, that's part of the show. That is part of the unreal stuff. That's the part that, it's all part and parcel of what we're giving you as the storyline, as opposed to Unreal, where we're, giving you the background stuff. I agree with you. And I've said, that's why old school or not, I just don't understand why you have to do Unreal. You're confusing people, you're blurring the lines, and you're looking kind of silly in the process. And again, I go back to the match itself. I would say if you're going to give Punk the championship, at least give it to him for 48 hours. At least do something live on Raw. Mm-hmm. Do your cash in right there. A couple of days later, hit him from behind with the briefcase and pin him. And by God, you still cashed in your Money in the Bank briefcase. Not immediately after the match, detracting from everything these guys did.
Yeah. And I think what we'll do is we'll get to SummerSlam, and then we'll kind of, wrap it up with our other gimmicks. We'll do the Unreal, because that's still, that's going to be on the table for next week. So we'll
Yeah.
We'll do that. Let's get to night 2 here, Mick. Night 2, I thought much, much better. It started out hot. I love you know what you're going to get with Rhea, and you know what you're going to get with Io Sky. When you throw Naomi in there, because Naomi still got the story with Bianca and Jade, I wasn't sure how that was all going to work in the triple threat, but they made the right call, in my opinion, by keeping it on Naomi. She has just elevated her game. And how cool is it that her dad was playing guitar and she got an entrance with her dad? I don't know. I really like what they're doing with Naomi, and I feel like she is deserving of everything that she's getting right now.
Deserving is the operative word there, Chris. She has paid her dues. She's done everything that they've asked of her. She's come back from injuries. She's been saddled with some silly gimmicks. And, when she comes out and she says, it's about time I paid my dues and blah, that's a shoot. And she is where she should be right now. Her promos are flawless right now. She's getting a little bit of a babyface pop because her promos are flawless and because there's a ring of truth into everything that she says. I agree with you. I'm very happy that they kept the title on her. And I would say, too, again, I've mentioned this before, I think that there's some really talented women at the top of this roster in WWE, whether it's Rhea, Io, Naomi, Becky Lynch, Raquel Rodriguez, whatever. They got a real good roster if they don't get silly with it. And congrats, Naomi. I hope it's a long run.
Yeah. Let's get to the TLC match. You and I loved it. I don't care if it was a spot fest. I loved it. Some really hellacious bumps. It's funny. Candice LeRae took maybe one of the most vicious bumps, and I don't care that it was a gimmicked ladder. The very fact that she was not on the card,
right.
She was not involved in any of the women's matches. She was out there supporting, DIY and Johnny and Tommaso, which, by the way, Ciampa without a beard just looks weird. I didn't even recognize him at first.
Little different, yeah.
Little different. She took a bump that she did not need to. And for those that don't know Candice LeRae's history, go back and watch some of the stuff that she did on the indies with Joey Ryan, who we're going to talk about next week. Joey Ryan and Candice LeRae versus the Bucks. Candice LeRae can flat out go. You talk about somebody that's got no fear. She was a big part of that match, but overall, I think that to TLC, you either like it or you hated it. I enjoyed it as long as nobody got seriously hurt. And you and I were wondering, what are they going to do with the titles? I think with the Wyatt 6 retaining, there's still a lot more you can do with that because the Wyatt 6, they haven't hit their gear, and I don't know why they're not there. I don't know why they're not getting their opportunity to go out and shine. Bo Dallas going out and an Intercontinental U.S. title, Eric Rowan U.S. title or Intercontinental, and I mean we're partial because Eric Rowan is our friend. He's a friend of both of ours, but it was the right call, I feel, with keeping it on the Wyatt 6.
Yeah, I'll talk about that in a second. As far as we thoroughly enjoyed it, and of course the IWC is out there complaining about it, and and how many chairs and tables can you go through, and so on and so forth. To me, there's a difference between a spot fest where it's all the flippy flop stuff, and and so predictable, and guys taking one continuous dangerous bump after another. And there was some really scary looking shit.
There were.
With some of the stuff that they did.
Yeah.
And the IWC is out there nitpicking on it. Think of what these guys put themselves through. My God. the bumps and the distance that they're taking on some of those falls. And I don't care if they're gimmicked or not. There's still ladders, there's still tables, there's still chairs.
You still have to get yourself to that position to take that bump.
Absolutely, you do. You know what? And if you or I, we're in position and we're looking down at that table, I ain't going anywhere. Get me the fuck off this ladder.
No. I am pussyfooting it off the top turnbuckle. I am slowly second rope. I'm making sure that I don't twist my ankle getting down.
Yeah, and again, the nitpickers are out there. There was too much or what have you, but that was spectacular. That was as good a TLC match as we've seen. Candice LeRae, as you said, fearless. She's not a big gal. She's a tiny little thing, a little pixie, and again, fearless.
She's a poison pixie.
Yeah, and she knew what she was doing. She positioned. We watched the bump. And you made reference to the way that she landed. She knew exactly what she was doing. You had the gimmick, the gimmick set up with the ladder, but she took it well.
You got to be able to execute.
Yeah. I thought the match was excellent. It kept you and I going, oh my God, wow. And as you said, you just hope that nobody gets hurt with some of the hellacious stuff that they're doing. As far as the Wyatt Six is concerned, I firmly believe the reason that they are not getting over the way you would expect them to is because it's not Bray Wyatt. It's not Wyndham. He's not the guy that's out there.
But the first night they came out with so much fanfare, and maybe that's because they wanted Bray, but you're going to position these guys, but then it's just been stop and start. I mean, I feel like that's more the booking more so than them. I mean, I don't know.
It could be. I mean, it could be a combination too. You're mishandling these guys. You're putting them in these, multi-team tag team matches, and then one week it looks like they're killer heels, and the next week they come out as baby faces. Yeah, so they're dropping the ball there too, especially with our buddy Joe. I would like to see that guy just unleashed.
Kayfabe.
Yeah,
Kayfabe.
As a singles terror. But they're not going to do it. But I just think it's a combination. Maybe it'll hit its stride sooner or later, but they haven't had, as you said, that moment yet. They have not had the defining moment. It's kind of been all shock and awe right now, but you haven't really established them as a force.
And maybe this is the beginning of it, but we'll have to wait and see. You break them up and you conquer, you add Alexa Bliss to it. You can have Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross go after the tag titles. Again, you can take the Wyatt Six and you can have them all go into their different programs, kind of like the Horsemen did. Kind of like the old, when you have these factions and everybody's doing their own thing. It's not like you've got two people that are doing one thing and we're all going to support them. It's like divide and conquer, kind of spiderweb all over the show. Maybe, do I say the worst match of the weekend? The cage match between Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu. You said that you are not a fan of being able to go through the door. I don't mind going through the door. This just for having such a personal issue, it didn't feel like it was presented like a personal issue.
We anticipated a lot more. You and I talked before, and we figured that was going to be one of the matches of the night. You got Jacob Fatu inside a steel cage, and Solo's he's good. We figured this is going to be something, and it's going to be all over the place and chaos. It was a short match. They did not go out very long. The reason that I hate the door and over the top, Chris, is, and maybe it's because I'm old school. Cage matches used to be you're locked in the cage. It's going to be one fall to a finish. There's nowhere for you to escape. That was the big thing about a cage match. That was if they would get Bobby Heenan in a cage match, there's nowhere for you to go, pal. Mm-hmm. You're padlocked in and you're going to get the shit beat out of you. Now think about it. And again, suspension of disbelief in wrestling. What is to prevent a guy, as soon as the bell rings, he makes a beeline for the door and he's out?
That's what I would do. That would be, if I was in a cage match, That is exactly what I would do. I would book it that way. Ding, ding, ding. Walk her out, get out, and you're like, what just happened? Well, technically, you won the match.
Exactly, and it's kind of up there with the champion can't lose his title by a disqualification. What's to prevent the champion from going out there? The bell rings, he turns around, punches the referee, gets disqualified, gets his paycheck, and goes home belt intact. It's that sometimes the believability or the the lack thereof is a little much. That's why I don't like the idea of going either through the door, over the top of the cage to escape. Cage matches are meant to settle a feud. You beat the shit out of the guy till he can't stand up, or whatever. Pin him 1, 2, 3 in the middle of the ring. The match itself really fell short of the mark as far as I'm concerned. The highlight was afterward. The highlight was Jacob's moonsault after the match was already over.
I feel like that's all that match was doing, was setting up the post-match moonsault, which looked very dangerous. I'm surprised he didn't break his leg when he was doing that. I mean, yeah, this continues the feud, but ultimately, okay, you lock two guys in there. Jacob Fatu does this moonsault from the top, which is cool as hell. It looked, I was like afraid he was going to like fracture his leg. It felt like it was set up for that one big spot. Everybody was anticipating, what is Jacob Fatu going to do in this match? He didn't do it in the match. And it was one spot after, and you're like, that's it. That's all we're getting. So I felt like the fans didn't get what they were promised.
That's why you and I were talking about that. Before the match started, we're thinking, oh boy, this is it. This is going to be a show stealer right here. Kind of reminds me years and years ago, Dusty Rhodes and I believe it was Big Boss Man had a match here in the Twin Cities, and it was in a cage. And they had built it up, on the national network and what have you. In about 5-6 minutes, and Dusty went over, and the crowd just like, what the fuck did you just give us here?
Yeah.
And Dusty wound up flipping the fans off on his way out of the ring because he didn't like the response. I kind of felt that way with this match. There was so much more that you could have done with it. And now you got to kind of start from scratch again, and because a cage match is a blow-off match. This should have been Jacob Fatu's element to go absolutely batshit crazy.
Yeah.
And he didn't do it until after the match with the moonsault.
And it goes against, not going crazy. It goes against the whole Samoan werewolf gimmick, right? Like he's supposed to be this, this locked in a cage, this frantic animal, and you just kind of got you got a neutered mongoose,
That could have been a Monday Night Raw cage match.
Yeah.
And it just seemed rushed, and it seemed like nobody really cared, kind of going through the motions. And they're much better than that. That's what I would say.
It could have been a Sunday Night Heat cage match.
Yeah, and they're better. They deserve better.
Yeah.
The talent, I think, deserves better than what they were allowed to show.
Yeah. Do you want to touch on the AJ Dominik match quickly before we get to the main event? I mean, there wasn't. I know that we were wondering about AJ going over. AJ didn't go over, which kind of surprises me. But I mean, it was cool. They were tributing Eddie, but there was just nothing. I don't know. We were surprised with AJ, but other than that, nothing really stuck out there. Still love Dom. Still love me some Dom Mysterio. That's not going to change.
Dom is great. Again, you're suspending disbelief where a guy who's taken a pounding for 15-20 minutes suddenly does the job for a boot. I've never been a fan of that. They did follow up again. They're not done with this feud, I guess, because AJ turns up on Raw and kind of confronts Dom. But again, I think it's a case of when you've got gimmick matches, when you've got the bells and whistles matches on a show, the one-on-one singles matches tend to kind of get lost in the shuffle, and the crowd kind of goes down a little bit.
And I figure after that awful cage match that it would have been easy to bring the crowd back up.
Right. And yeah, they kind of lost the crowd at that point. Brought them back up again, of course, a little bit for the main event, which I would say actually the crowd was well into the main event. We're going to nitpick the shit out of that match too, but Yeah, Dom and AJ was just kind of there. I really figured they would give AJ one last hurrah, one last run with the championship. Maybe they still will down the road because they obviously haven't let it go yet.
Yeah, I mean, AJ's gone out and he's like, hey, this is my last year. It's kind of like similar to Cena. I don't know if I agree with 2 farewell tours going on simultaneously, but nonetheless, yeah, I thought that would have been a time to pull the trigger, especially with Dom being a big part of AAA, where I mean, you kind of let him focus on that. Now let's get to the main event. The match itself, I thought really had some moments. Like the crowd was hot. It had its moments. I thought it started out really well. But there were a couple of missed opportunities and a couple of things later that kind of took me out of the moment. And you and I were watching it, and we kind of saw the same thing. First of all, let's go chronologically. I want to go from the beginning of the match, maybe to where they go underneath the platform. Kind of let's go to that point, and then we'll go from platform on.
First of all, I think John Cena really delivered in that match.
Best match since maybe his series with AJ Styles 12, 13 years ago.
He looked rejuvenated,
Really
and
good.
it was interesting too because you had a split crowd, but they were a little bit heavy for John Cena. So then there's everybody, and we were doing it too, speculating, is Cody going to turn? I think that's a mistake. I don't think you turn Cody Rhodes heel right now. He is the baby face of the company.
Yes.
He's the goodwill guy. I don't think you change him at all.
But you almost thought that Cena was too over the top. It was too cheesy at the beginning. You're like, oh, this is bullshit. Of course he's stringing us along. It was so cheesy. And I mean, only John Cena can do it cheesy and make us wonder if it's a work or a shoot. And I guess maybe that's just the charm of John Cena.
It is the charm of John Cena. And, fans have been critical over Cena's limited moveset over the years, and it hasn't changed any. It's the same. It is exactly the same that it was years ago. But there is a charm to John Cena, and he gets by with it. He gets it over. And I think whether it was rejuvenation, he looks like he's lost a little bit of size. Maybe he's moving a little bit better. His cardio seemed to be better. John Cena really delivered in this match. And Cody did not have to carry a guy who's in his late 40s going on his last run in WWE. I thought the match was very, very good, very well paced. Of course, then you had the finish. You and I, as the grandstanders, the guys sitting in the bleacher seats, eating popcorn, kind of nitpicked a couple of things that we saw during the match.
Let's say you've booked shows before, so, and you've been in those meetings. So this is why I like to bounce things off of you, because I say, if I'm seeing it and you're seeing it, then that tells me that I'm not being fooled by what I see. If I'm seeing things the same way because you have booked shows, you have been in that spot. So that's why I like to bounce things off of you.
Well, and some things are painfully obvious. I think that's, and again, watching it with the critical eye instead of just as a fan, and I don't mean just as a fan, I'm not denigrating the fans, but the average viewer probably isn't going to pick up on some of the stuff that you and I are looking for. But there was an awful lot of light in some of the moves, especially as the match wore on a little bit, where you just think, oh my God, come on. But you're in a 60,000 seat stadium. Maybe you're not seeing it. You're not seeing it. You're not being analytical the way we were. But it kind of jumps out at people like us, like, oh, you were doing so well, and now this.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, let's go to that, and then we'll go to the platform and kind of how that could have played in, I think, a little bit better. And what we're talking about are the STF and the spots where they used the ropes. There was the STF with John on Cody. I could apply it tighter to you in 2 different locations than what we saw that. And I understand that you didn't want to put the pressure on him and you want to allow Cody the opportunity to get to the ropes. I felt like that it was very loose. The camera angle, they could have gotten a different camera angle to maybe give us a different thing at home. This does not denigrate the effort of what the guys did. I couldn't do it. I wouldn't want to do it. These guys are fucking great at their job. I think, and they're being, I think that maybe this is them being careful. The rope spots as well, where it was tied around, it was loose around Cody's neck. You could see it. And then it was around his arm. And there was a lot of light, as you said. Now, things can be snug, but they don't have to be tight. There's a difference between those two. I felt like they could have been just a little bit tighter because I saw that and it took me out of the moment because I understand the violence and the intensity. But I feel like once they took the rope off, it was a great idea. I just felt like it was a little loose. And like you said, there was some light and it took me out of that particular moment.
I think you hit it on the head with camera angle, and I don't think there's any excuse for that either.
I mean, if you're going to have an overproduced product like WWE has, then you need to, because Kevin Dunn took a lot of shit with all of the, with the punches. It's like camera. Here, I felt like they stayed a little bit too long. They could have at least transitioned away and come back to it. Allow those guys a chance to reset it because it's not their fault. They're trying to be careful. But yeah, I think that's more in the camera angle, more so on them. And that was my problem primarily with the later half or that maybe 5-10 minute stretch.
You got to understand, wrestling is so much about the camera angle. I mean, not just with an STF or the rope or whatever, but with a punch or a kick or a knee lift or whatever. There's a lot of importance to that camera angle. There would be a lot more opportunity, I think, for us to be critical of air and missed punches and missed moves. If the camera angles weren't as good as they typically are.
Yeah.
This one, especially with Cena, and of course they probably tell us, well, you apply that hold, with Cena with his forearms, you don't have to have the wrapped around his, your excuses. But you were right into the ring. And that, I think, was part of it. And they didn't pull away from that. And like you said, you could have put Sky low between John Cena's arms and Cody's neck. There was that much light. And the spot that you're talking about with the ropes at the end, you said to me, I hadn't even caught it. We're watching, you go, the rope's around his arm. There's no damage being done here whatsoever. So a lot of it is camera angle. Again, we got to remember these guys are working their asses off, trying to get theirs over. They're probably in, for 20 minutes at that point.
Yeah.
And they're doing well. And again, we're being smart asses here because we're looking at it from a critical standpoint, from a booker standpoint, from an analyst standpoint. The crowd in the arena popped, and that's the bottom line. You had 60,000 people screaming, hoping that Cody would get to the ropes or Cena would pull him back or whatever in the SDF. So you can't argue with that part of it, and I think we're probably being a little too cynical, a little too critical, but I think we're making a point here. Get your shit together, at least create that illusion, change the camera angle.
Yeah, and I mean, you can say these guys did a great job.
They did.
You can say the match, the emotion in the match was off the charts. We're just talking about a handful. We're talking maybe 10% of the match that that kind of just took us out of the moment. It doesn't diminish what they did. It was just that execution. And again, when you are a production company, WWE is not a wrestling company anymore. If you Google WWE, we are a production company. If you are a production company, you need to produce that much better. And that's the fault lies on WWE production, not on John, not on Cody, because they're doing that in the moment and they're working real speed. And I know I couldn't do it. End of the match. Cody goes over, which I kind of understand it now if we're going along the John Cena, as I say, playing the hits. We've seen Orton, we've seen Punk, we've seen Killings, we've seen Cody. We've got, just a handful of months left. And now you move the title off of Cena, and he is now booked into another program that I think it's very controversial with fans right now, what happened at the end. And it's not just because of the destroying Cena, it's who it was.
I was surprised that Cody went over. I think more surprised than you were, because I really anticipated in his last 4 months here that Cena was going to go out with the championship. I figured he's going to retire the belt. And I suppose there's still the off chance that he wins it one more time between now and the retirement. I don't see that being very likely, but I was surprised that Cody went over. An interesting thing about the match too is you noticed, and again, this is WWE keeping us on our toes. A couple of times it looked like there was going to be a heel turn for Cody Rhodes there. They teased that a little bit, should I hit him with this? Should I do that? And he's having this consternation in his head.
Well, and they did a good job with the to kind of piggyback off of Cody. Sorry to cut you off, Mick.
No.
The Cody, it's a street fight. You do whatever you can to win the title. Right. It doesn't make you a bad guy. It just makes you, hey, it's a street fight. I can do this. I'm not a bad guy. Right. But I want to win the title, and I'm allowed to do this, so I'm going to do it.
That's the believability of it. Is you get the guy, he's conflicted. He doesn't know if he should do this or not. Is he really going to cripple this guy? Should I go this far, or should I pull up the reins a little bit? So, yeah, again, you got that intrigue. Cody goes over. Cena's got his moment, and the crowd was eating it up, and Cena was clearly in his glory. I don't know if he was as emotionally, touched as they would like you to believe, but it was definitely a moment.
I believe it. I believe that this is a chance for Cena to really, gimmick infringement to Keith Lee, but bask in his glory.
You know what? And I think the fans are sensing it too. I mean, the fans are now realizing this is the end of an era. And we might not have been on this guy's side all these years, and Cena sucks and you can't wrestle. But damn it, this is John Cena, and they were feeling the moment. I think that's what's happening right now, which is great for WWE. Ride this till the end of the year with Cena being the baby face. Mm-hmm. But again, as you alluded to, Chris, you got that controversy at the end. Some people say, "What are you getting all worked up about? This was great." Some people say I was there live and it was one of the biggest pops I ever heard when he came out. And other people are saying, you're treading that fine line again, WWE. You take it from here.
Yeah, I think it all depends on what kind of a fan you consider yourself. If you consider yourself a smart mark and, you know all about what's going on with Brock Lesnar and Janelle Grant and, Vince McMahon and the lawsuit, the very dirty and unsavory details and the lawsuit. There are some that are not bothered by that. There are some that is their breaking point to be like, okay, you can do all of this, but when you're going to bring back somebody who's embroiled in the middle of a lawsuit against said company that you are bringing him back. Now, granted, it appears without Vince McMahon's input, but why would you bring back somebody that we know has been involved and is, not part of the company lawsuit, but he's named in the lawsuit? But then you look at it from a creative standpoint, and people are like, well, Lesnar, Brock Lesnar's a big deal. John Cena, this is his farewell tour. And you play the hits, like I'd said. Brock Lesnar is someone that what we're hearing has been handpicked by John Cena to be part of Cena's calling the shots. Like Cena is booking the opponents as we go along. So if John Cena wants Brock Lesnar, you can say, yeah, we're going to give him to you. knowing that there's going to be some sort of PR issue that they could potentially deal with. Or you could say, hey, no, we're not going to give it to you because it's too much of a liability. The juice is worth the squeeze for WWE, because here comes the pain. Here comes Brock Lesnar at the end of the show. And he popped, and maybe as you get into the story, some people don't even know, or some people don't care. I think it's all about, how do you perceive Brock Lesnar as the individual?
Lesnar is a polarizing figure, and he always has been. I've been a big Brock Lesnar fan, and he's had his critics over the years. There's some people that just hate this guy and hate what he does in the ring with the short matches and what have you. There's no question about the fact that when Brock Lesnar shows up, it's magic. Something happens. I mean, that crowd pops, good, bad, or ugly.
Mm-hmm.
This guy is a star. And from what I'm reading, WWE may be comfortable enough in the fact that they don't think there's going to be any real serious legal fallout for Brock. And in that sense, it's a safe thing to bring him back. Personally, I think I would have made damn sure that there was no fallout, that there was no legal ramifications for him, and he was going to get away unscathed before I brought him back. So,
but that may not happen, though.
Right.
You might not get resolution before the end of Cena's run. So I feel like you either do it now or you don't do it at all.
Wait, yeah, and I guess to be perfectly frank, if there is legal fallout, oh well, in terms of, well, now we get this, we're going to make money on it. What happens after that? If we lose Brock after these couple of matches,
money,
or he goes to Saudi Arabia or whatever, we've still made our money on him. And then after that, hey, you're on your own, buddy. But it was surprising to me that he showed up. But if what you say is true, and it's John Cena handpicking the guys that he wants to go out with, Lesnar's got to be at the top of that list.
Here's one thing I will say with what they could have done with Lesnar, and you and I were discussing this after the show. This would have been the way to do it. You had a fantastic visual in that match with coming up through the elevator shaft. You go underneath the platform. My thought, and your thought as well, you go underneath that platform. Something's happening. You get on the elevator. You come up. You see Cena or Cody on the back of somebody. You don't know who it is. You slowly come up, and then you either have the back to the camera and you don't know who it is. You turn around and it's Brock, or you slowly pan up and you see that it's Brock, and Brock's got somebody on his shoulders, and this all happens underneath the platform. To me, that's how I would have done it. That would have had much more of a holy shit factor. That's how I would have done it, instead of the music and the pop, because then maybe it's too big. Maybe MetLife Stadium is too big where you don't know who it is. But I feel like that would have been a very unique opportunity to bring him back, instead of the same old very end of the show music, come down, done.
As far as the reference to the stadium being too big, they know you got that massive screen. The camera.
You could have played it up on the screen like we got home. Everybody would have known, even in the cheap seats, that's Brock.
That's Brock. Yeah. They could have done a lot with it. I guess in the scheme of things, if Brock comes out at that point in the platform spot, then where do you go with it? What's your finish now?
You have to and see, that's the thing. Like you got to go home from that stuff. From that point,
you do. So
you have to go home. Yeah. Maybe you do it later in the match. I mean, you do that as part of the go home segment.
I thought that the platform spot had so much potential, and you and I are looking at each other like, okay, now what? I mean, it was a matter of, what was it, an F5 or something?
It was an attitude adjustment. And you're like, Okay, that was it. All of that build up for that. It's like,
yeah, it's like the bells and whistles going off at a slot machine when it's paying you 15 cents. It just
that's a good
the
comparison,
payoff was
actually.
not there. But bottom line, spot or not, platform or not, and again, I think that was a missed opportunity. People are talking again, and if that's the bottom line, going forward, Brock Lesnar is the guy. If you're going to have some controversy and people just holy shit, you got that holy shit moment.
Yeah.
Lesnar's your guy.
And then after Lesnar, I'm just very curious how you wrap this up. How you wrap up Cena. I don't know. I mean, I don't know who else would be, and that's something we could get into as we get into the fall and the winter. Because if Adam Copeland was on the roster, he would have been in there as well. But the Lesnar thing is only going to last a short period of time.
Right.
Lesnar at most is going to go to Survivor Series, and then it's done. What do you do in December? Because that's your biggie. And I think the last one's at Madison Square Garden, and that's going to be a huge, maybe one of the biggest nights in Garden history because it's Cena. I'm sure we'll hear about how much money they're making. At the Garden afterwards. So, well, I mean, that's our thoughts on SummerSlam, you guys. Next week, I want to get into more Unreal. Cody last week actually was talking a little bit about AEW and a little bit of disrespect. I want to get into that, and also Joey Ryan. We're hearing his name resurface. So I want to get into those 3 points next week. But right now, what are we going to do? We're going to do trivia or let's do ringside or left. Trivia or this day in history. What are we doing next, Nick?
Let's do trivia first here.
Okay.
And the previous question, the last question was, what was the real name of the late great Hercules Cortez, former AWA Tag Team Champion? The real name was Alfonso Chicaro or Chicharo, depending on the pronunciation. That was Herc's real name. And Steve Lardy, who's getting to be is this guy a superstar with AWA Unleashed and the podcast and the Slick Mick page and what have you. Steve almost immediately got a hold of me via email, and he said, here's the name. So, Steve, you're going to get some wrestling memorabilia from me. This week's question, and we're going to have a new email address for you coming up. This week's question, a little convoluted, but pay attention here, folks. A former AWA Tag Team Champion, and I'm going to say this is not a recent AWA Tag Team Champion, so you're going to have to go back.
Promotion hasn't been around for over 30 years. Of course it's not going to be recent.
So what I meant is even beyond that. So this could go back 60 years. What this tag team champion, former AWA tag team champion, and a top star from the more recent past in pro wrestling in the Southeastern Territories share the same first and last name. We do that again. Former AWA tag team champion and a top star from the Southeastern Territories share the same first and last name. Who are those two individuals? If you know, email me, SlickMick SNR88, not SNR1 anymore, SlickMick SNR88 at gmail.com. And hopefully we can have a winner this week. This is a little tougher than the questions we've asked before. But if you want to go back to the dark ages, that AWA Tag Team Champion, go into those history books, you'll know the answer to that. So good luck, everybody.
This is going to take you more than Google. I mean, you might have to Bing and Hey Jeeves this one. You're going to have to go all over to look for the answer for this one.
Yeah, you might have to. You might even have to contact an authority figure. Now we're going to go to This Week in Wrestling History.
Yes.
And this goes back to August 3rd, 1980 in the Minneapolis Auditorium. And in your main event, God, I can't believe 45 frickin' years ago, the Crusher wins by disqualification over Jerry Blackwell.
Mm.
Dino Bravo goes to a no contest with Nick Bockwinkel.
I can't see Dino Bravo as a babyface. I'm sorry.
He
Dark-haired babyface Dino Bravo, it doesn't work for me.
That's the way he started out his career, and came in as a strongman, feuded with Black Belt for a little bit, but he went to a no contest with Mr. Bockwinkel. The AWA World Tag Team Champions at the time, Adrian Adonis and Jesse Ventura, defeated a very interesting combination, kind of makeshift babyface tag team of Steve Olsanowski, and Tito Santana. Also on the card, you had 4 of the lady wrestlers who were big at the time. Judy Martin and the late Vivian St. John defeated 2 more that are sadly no longer with us, Winona Littleheart and Joyce Grable in a women's tag team match. And Big John Studd defeated Super Destroyer Mark II, Bob Remus, a.k.a. Sergeant Slaughter. So great card. Minneapolis, Minnesota, August 3rd, 1980.
A lot of big-time names on that
Absolutely.
card. And for those that are not aware, and maybe they're just kind of, finding this out for the first time, the AWA had a lot of these names before the WWF. So you talk about the WWF in the, mid to late 80s was huge. Well, yeah, a lot of those names came through here 5 years before they were main eventing in WWF. They were on the cards here. And I think that's one thing that I think people kind of overlook. It's like, oh man, look at all these names. Well, 70% of those guys either made their way through here or they originated here. And I think that's what makes some of these older cards that much more impressive.
And, it's sad to look at some of the roster, too, and realize how many of the guys are gone. And granted, it's 45 years ago. But, when half your card or better are no longer with us, it puts everything into focus. So, Ringsider time.
Yes. And as a pinfall member, one thing we do is we highlight a Ringsider of the week. And I'll get you some information after this. Our Ringsider of the week is Chris Brooks, originally from Northwest Indiana, moved to Newport News, Virginia in 1984, where he started watching WWF All-American Wrestling on USA Network. I mean, Gorilla Monsoon, I think that was part of his baby. Interesting where he was at. It makes sense that he loved the Jim Cornette managed Midnight Express. I assume that this is probably Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane.
I would assume so, yeah.
Okay. Didn't like Heavy Metal Van Hammer. Well, in his defense, I mean, the Heavy Metal Van Hammer and PN News feud from 1991 is epic.
Yeah, it sure is.
It's
a case of the stomach flu.
It is definitely that. Love the old Mid-Atlantic, which again makes sense. Mid-Atlantic filled with talent. Did not like ECW. That's interesting because, being the age that I am, and I get the sense that Chris is about the same age. ECW they were the outlaws, the renegades, and back in the mid to late 90s, they were that cultish underground promotion that was anti-establishment, that was breaking all the rules. And you've got to be if you're a pure wrestling fan, and you're not going to be a fan of ECW. Exactly. I loved ECW, but I understand those that didn't.
Chris Brooks.
Yep.
Good man, Chris. And we got to encourage people. Come out of the woodwork here. Let's recognize you as a Ringsider of the week. That was a staple on the old SNR back in the day, and we want it to be this time. Come on, get a little spotlight, get a little shine.
Yep, this is our chance to put you over. And if you are a Ringside, a pinfall member, and you haven't received your welcome letter and pictures, because one of the things that you get here, being a pinfall member, is you get access to our regular AWA Unleashed a day early. You get our weekly Back to Ringside, which is this. You get our monthly watch along that just dropped. That was the Bad Boys of the AWA. You get a welcome letter from me with a magnet, a sticker, and you get a 5-pack of pictures. And if for some reason you've signed up and you haven't received those, email me at chris.sportcaster@gmail.com. And by the way, along with that, you get a chance to be featured here on Back to Ringside. I have a template that I will send to you. You just have to email me, chris.sportscaster@gmail.com. That is my personal email, and I will get you the template, and we can feature you every week here on our Back to Ringside. We've got a lot of pinfall members that have not signed up or that have not, filled it out. We have some that are waiting to be featured, but if you are a Ringside pinfall member, email me. And if you want to become a pinfall member, I know that this is one that we're kind of putting out there to give you guys a little bit of a taste, similar to what we did with the watch along. Go ahead and sign up. The link is in the description of the video. That being said, Mick, I think we're done. We did almost an hour and a half of SummerSlam. I didn't think one thing about this show. We are not a show that is going to just sit here and review every single pay-per-view or Raw or SmackDown. I don't have time for that with my real job. Mick doesn't have time for it. It's a lot of people do it. We're more of a topic-laden show, but because there was so much with SummerSlam, I felt like we needed to kind of keep this isolated to one topic.
And for the WWE tribalists out there and the apologists for WWE, I'm going to say again, we want nothing but good stuff from WWE, and they're fully capable of giving that, and they do deliver. But every once in a while, there's a clunker, and, we're going to bring that up too. But it's just opinion. Our opinion is no more valid than anybody. Well, yes, it is.
Yes, it is. You've got a podcast. You're important, Mick.
But at any rate,
you're important. You ran the AWA out of business. You're important.
Boy,
love you.
You really know how to put a guy over there, buddy. I appreciate that very much. P.S. I love you, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Back to Ringside.